is the 17th season of Bass Talk Live with your hosts, Mark Jeffries and Matt Pingrack. BTL is brought to you by Lawrence, Bass Cat Boats, APCO, Duck and Fishing, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Yamagatsu, The Bass Tank, and Denali Rods. BTL coming at you. Good Monday, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where Ken and I are going to talk bass fishing and anything else that Ken and I want to talk about. Yes, he is pitch hitting from the man that usually sits to my right, Ken Duke. So glad you could make it, man.
So thrilled to be here, Mark. Always a pleasure, my friend. This is a blast for me. Thank you.
All right. Now, I did speak to Matt this morning. He gave me a call in the wee hours of the AM, and this is practice day number 3. He said he had a good practice day, and he had a terrible practice day. The terrible practice day, he only caught 2 fish. The second practice day, let's just say he had a heavy bag. That's a good way of putting it.
That's awesome, and the more the longer I work in this industry, the older I get, the more I realize there may just be very little connection between practice and performance in the event. I'm not sure I notice a clear connection between solid practice and solid finish.
There's great practice players, aren't there? In every sport.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are guys who have the reputation of always winning practice.
Yeah,
and I love that. That's kind of the ultimate insult for a tournament angler. Is he always wins practice. We know those guys.
Yeah. Well, we have a bunch to talk about. We're going to talk about, obviously, ICAST 2021. Get into that. Get your thoughts. You were right in the middle of it. Saw some great stuff. Saw some kind of crazy stuff. Saw some interesting stuff. We'll get into that. We're going to talk about schedules. We're going to talk about moving the needle. So all kinds of stuff to get into, Ken.
You'd think a needle is not that big, but it's awfully hard to move.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Do you like the comparison that I use a lot of times where this industry is kind of a swimming pool and everybody else and all the other industries around is more like the Atlantic Ocean?
I like that analogy a lot, and I think there's a lot of truth to that analogy, unfortunately. But you know how it is. No matter what industry you're in, whether it's bass fishing or bowling or basketball or whether you make widgets, if you're totally immersed in it, your world seems pretty big. When in the larger scheme of things, maybe it's not that big.
Well, typically, you got 2 parts to the swimming pool, too. You got the shallow end and you got the deep end.
Mark Jeffries, you're always operating on a higher level than me. Always. I'm swimming in your wake, my friend. That's what I'm doing.
We'll see. Speaking of pools and swimming, are you an Olympic guy? Do you watch the Olympics at all, Ken?
Not really. I mean, I'm not really an Olympic guy. Back when I was a kid, I was more interested in the pro sports because I felt like those were the best. Those were the best there were, and the amateur things didn't really do for me. I am amused by the way our country, in particular, gets interested in things like gymnastics only every 4 years or so. I think that's hilarious. For 3 months out of 4 years, the U.S. gets fired up about things like gymnastics and figure skating and stuff. And also, I think a lot of those events are not sports to me. Figure skating is not a sport. Synchronized swimming is not a sport to me. Well, no, I mean, on an objective level, I think you're not a sport if you don't have objective scoring. If you don't have objective scoring, you're not a sport. If I can't look up at the scoreboard and see your objective score, watch you accumulate points or runs or whatever it might be, then you are not a sport. I also sometimes tend to believe that you're not a sport unless there is some sort of active defense, which would mean that bass fishing is not a sport.
Well, that's not true. Ask David Dudley. One of the most famous statements in tournament bass fishing was, hey, I was out there doing some defensive fishing when he was going around muddying up the areas that had spawning fish in there.
Yeah, but when you have to go back 15 years to find one example of active defense, that's maybe not a big part of our game. I'm a big David Dudley fan. Not sure how I feel about that, but I get it. Yeah, he was trying to screw things up for the guys who had a better boat draw that day. I was at that tournament.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. I sit around sometimes, and you and I have had this conversation, but I sit around sometimes and think, how can we add active defense to our sport? Because I think that might be the thing that helps it find a new audience.
Legal active defense.
Legal active defense that is not somehow deleterious to the resource or dangerous or something like that. You know, I don't want these guys bumping boats. I don't want these guys throwing 3/4 ounce spoons at each other. But I would love to see active defense brought to the game. And I haven't figured out a way to do that yet.
All right, let me ask you this. Since you are the historian of this game, can you recall, not illegal, but let's just call it active, what I would describe as, and it's probably not the right term, but hole sitting. In other words, you have a situation where there is some coordinated effort that an individual angler has communicated with some recreational boaters, of which they go out and they're just happen to have, you know, a couple of beverages sitting on a spot, and then when they see this, you know, XYZ boat pull up, get into the area, they kind of just mosey on off.
You know, back in the 70s, that was commonplace.
Yeah.
Happened all the time from what I understand. I expect it still happens to a degree. But I expect that guys are a lot more subtle about it now. And, of course, as you say, there's nothing illegal about that. A guy who's just a fan can sit on a spot he knows that his fishing idol wants to fish later in the day and wait until the guy shows up. And there's nothing illegal about that. So but I think it's a little bit problematic. I'd like to see a different kind of – I think the closest thing I've seen to real active defense was in some of the old match fishing formats, you know, where they would draw a line across the boat from gunnel to gunnel right behind the console or right even with the console. And the guy in the back of the boat was not allowed to cast in front of that. And the guy in the front of the boat was not allowed to cast behind it. And you'd see guys getting wickedly back-ended. But that's as close as I've seen to anything that would approximate active defense. And that's not terribly active. That's a pretty passive defense, I think. But it's something.
I get it. It's quite creative how some guys get, though, with, I don't know if you would classify it as defensive fishing, but, man, there's a lot of guys out there over the years, Ken, and you can agree or disagree with that. I want your opinion, that push the line but never do anything illegal. Correct statement?
Hey, absolutely, and I like it. I like guys who push the envelope. I like guys who are testing the limits of our sport because they're helping to redefine it and to send it off into a new direction. And if they're really doing something they shouldn't be doing, I think eventually the rules catch up to it and stop it. I mean, there are a whole bunch of rules in the books these days because of guys like Roland Martin and Guido Hibden, who were doing things that were absolutely permissible at one time, but are no longer permissible. And that needs to continue because the sport needs to find interesting and new directions to move into.
All right, Tacklecraft on the comments brings up a good point. There's a lot of mental games being played.
Yeah, that's always true. I mean, a lot of people may not realize that the best tournament angler of all time, in my opinion, that's Kevin Vandam, was also one of the best at playing mental games with people.
Yeah.
He would, if he was in the top couple of places going into the final day, I've seen Kevin walk up to people many times and say, I hope you catch them today because I'm going to wear them out. And
yeah, I've witnessed it too.
And then he would just turn and walk away. And I maybe Kevin doesn't want that part of his game revealed, but I've done that now, and I thought it was very cool. And I don't care how veteran you are, that moment might live in your head for a little while that day, and it might take you off your game a little bit, might motivate you to fish even harder and better. It depends on the guy you're talking to. But yeah, there are all kind of mental games going on out there.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch. It's fun to watch what takes place behind the stage, too, that a lot of the fans don't get to see. That's where a lot of games are played.
You're absolutely right about that. And Bass Talk Live and your work has done more to show the world what's going on behind the stage than anybody else. And I think that while the fans may never really see all of what's going on back there, they can probably guess at a lot of it, and they can probably anticipate who the biggest game players are in that world. It's a lot of times it's the veterans. A lot of times it's the guys who have the big resumes, who have won a lot of events and things like that, who are the biggest at playing the mental games because they have kind of the gravitas and the reputation to do that. But you do see it all the time back there. What's different about our sport than some of your other sports like basketball and bowling is once guys launch, the mental games are largely over, or at least the mental moves are largely over because you don't have direct contact with your competitors, which is certainly not true in basketball or bowling. But some guys are pretty good at laying the groundwork for getting in people's heads on the bank and then staying in their heads on the water all day.
Yeah, I'm going to throw this comment up. Mark, what about the old Private Cove? I'm calling the cops, saying from the homeowners on the water. I've seen that a few times.
Oh, yeah, that happens a lot. And you know what? We've even seen it in places where these private landowners will let one guy in because they like him, but nobody else. And that's not cool. But in most cases, these private landowners do not have water rights. Their rights extend into the water only insofar as their property sits there, their boat dock or something sits there, and you can't perhaps get off on the boat dock or something like that, but you can certainly fish around it. Yeah, there those kind of things. I love when I run into those people on the water. As long as if the fishing's slow, I'm happy to taunt them for the rest of the day and beg them, please, dear God, call the police.
Hey, I think with rookie classes that come out, it doesn't matter what tour it is, be it the Elite Series, BBT, TWPC, or whatever, the mental toughness is really what you see as a difference maker with these guys. And you know what, Ken? It's that way in any sport because the dude that can handle the pressure, the guy that can really get his act together when that intimidation factor, and I know guys that could say, I've seen it and you've seen it. It's, I'm not intimidated by anybody. I don't believe that. I really don't, because I've seen the intimidation take place behind the stage with rookies and sophomore Elite Series guys that when particular anglers would walk up to him and say, hey, man, we got to have a discussion about what you're doing on that hump that's just outside of XYZ Cove. That situation happens multiple times, and then the guys that are mentally tough, they don't back down. But the guys that aren't mentally tough, they shrivel up like water on a straw wrapper.
You're absolutely right. That stuff happens every day.
Yeah.
And of course, it happens every day, not just in the big league tournaments, but it happens all the time on little buddy tournaments in the lakes in our backyards. You've seen it in Oklahoma. I've seen it in Florida, other places. It just happens. And you're right. The guys who are mentally tough, the guys who are willing to stand their ground usually come out better in those situations. I think the guy who I really admire the way he handles it, one guy who I really admire the way he handles it is Terry Scroggins. Scroggins has told me before, and I love the way he puts it too. He says, I cannot afford in this business, I cannot afford to let my launch number determine my fate in the tournament. I can't let my draw determine whether I'm going to be successful or I'm going to fail. When Terry pulls into an area that he had found in practice and he's ready to fish during competition, and then there's another guy there, there's Mark Jeffries there. He says, Mark, are we going to share this area today, or am I going to have it all to myself tomorrow? because he knows that if you're boat number 1 today, you're going to be boat number 100 tomorrow, and you guys are going to flip. So I think that's a great way to handle it. And I really applaud the guys who find a diplomatic way to handle it, where maybe nobody wins big, but nobody loses big either, and nobody's fate is controlled strictly by their boat draw.
Yeah. I can remember a particular situation. I think it was on Champlain, might have been Champlain, with Bobby Lane. And let me tell you something. The negotiation power that Bobby Lane has is it's enormously impressive, because he doesn't get mad, he doesn't cuss, he doesn't intimidate you physically, but mentally you're willing to do whatever Bobby Lane says. And what happened there, it was a situation where behind stage, there was a guy that was following down this particular weed line or whatever it was, and Bobby was smashing him, but this guy caught him also. But then the guy that he was talking to, and I can't remember who it was a rookie. I think it might have been, who was the Brodeur? What was it? Ken Brodeur? Yeah. He was from New England, very familiar with this body of water with Champlain, haven't fished it a bunch, but him and Bobby got together, and Bobby was like, look, man, here's the way things are going to be. All right. I got the left side. You got the right side. If you want to come behind me, more power to you. Just do not jump in front of me. That's all I ask. And the rule, and fans hopefully know this, the rule, kind of the unwritten rule, once again, if you have more weight from the previous day, that's your area. That is the unwritten rule.
It is.
But the power that Bobby Lane negotiates with, he could get anybody to do anything. He was one of the most masterful ones that I ever saw, not cut deals, but explain how the situation was going to go the following day. And Ken froze up. Oh, jeez. I know you guys want stories. That's one of the stories that I remember, and hopefully Ken will come back here shortly, because I am not. All right, you're back.
Sorry about that, Mark. Don't know what happened there. I lost my internet connection for a minute. I think it was because Bobby Lane cut us off.
No. But do you agree with that he is masterful at what has to take place off the water during a tournament event, of which, folks, I'm telling you, that is a big part, especially when you're in tight quarters.
It's huge, and Bobby Lane does so many things so well, and that is absolutely one of them. Bobby can be very diplomatic. We talk about the intimidation factor and the gravitas of having had some success and being well known and things like that. It's usually the guys who have the credentials and the resume who win those battles and who negotiate the better deals. And it also doesn't help if you're a big guy. Denny Brower was always kind of an intimidator on the water. I'm not saying that Denny wasn't absolutely diplomatic and fair and reasonable. I'm just saying it doesn't hurt that he's 6'2", 6'3", and he's got a classic and an Angler of the Year title, and he's won 1 million tournaments, and he's Denny Brower. That doesn't hurt either.
I remember, here's another quick story. I remember being on the lake that Matt's on right now, Oneida Lake, and Darren Schwinkbeck. You remember him?
I remember him. Darren won a tournament on the Mississippi River back in about 2005.
Yeah, great dude, highly successful doing what he does now. But I remember, and he wasn't the only one. And at the time, those shoals, some of them had markers on it, some of them didn't. But that's where a lot of guys were targeting, the fish that they were catching. And a master at doing this was Kevin Vandam. Well, I can remember shooting photos on the water of Kevin during the tournament, and I remember seeing Darren like he wanted to pull up to fish this one shoal, and then when he saw the big, nitro wrap and all that, knew it was Kevin. What do you think he did, Ken?
Hey, you're not part of the community, man.
He made a U-turn. And I remember sitting there because I probably shot photos of him for, 30 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. And there were probably 5 or 6 boats that pulled up on this one shoal, and they all did the magic turn and just went away because, and it was a huge, huge area. It wasn't just this single blue dot right here that's like on my screen.
Blue dots, man.
Yeah, it was a massive area that you could comfortably fish 2 or 3 boats in there. But it was the entire area was Kevin, and that's part of the intimidation factor. But then you do have some people, and I've seen it before. I've seen it on Guntersville, where you'll be on a particular grass line or a ledge or something, and then it turns into, a screaming match. You don't own this lake. You can't tell me where to fish, blah, blah, blah. It's crazy.
It is crazy, and guys do get into screaming matches occasionally, but it's usually the guys who are not necessarily terribly savvy about how they're doing things. Getting into a screaming match is seldom a good play. It might work for you one time, but the next time you encounter that guy, it might really, really go wrong. But yeah, when you've accomplished as much as Kevin, when Kevin plays that intimidation card, you think, good Lord, how good can this man be at every aspect of the sport? Well, he's a master at almost every aspect of the sport, including the intimidation, including just having such a big resume that people are hesitant to pull in on him. You see it over and over again.
I think go ahead, Ken. I'm sorry.
Another good reason not to pull in on Kevin is he's probably got 60 boats behind him, and you're also having to deal with them. So, finding other water than what Kevin Vandam is fishing is often a good play.
Yeah. I think a lot of fans out there realize how important the negotiations that take place after day one. Some guys do that. Other guys just say, screw that. I'm going to go fish, and I'm going to go do what I do, and you better not pull in on me. That's what a lot of guys do. But I'm telling you, there are numerous conversations that take place, be it bad or good, after that day one when you're fishing in tight quarters.
And a lot of these negotiations, as you know, Mark, happen during practice too.
Yeah.
If you guys know that they're there. And a lot of I get a kick out of some of the discussions sometimes I've been privy to, because on day one, these two guys will find themselves in the same place. And one dude will say, hey, man, I didn't see you here in practice. And the other guy will say, well, that's because I found this place in 1993. and you go on and on and on.
I'm with you, man. All right, let's do this. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to jump into the ICAST conversation, dive into all kinds of stuff. Want to pick your brain. There, you're switching hats there.
Changing hats. I got to take off my BTL cap for just a minute and put on my fishing tackle retailer cap.
All right. That's a good move there, Ken. So we'll take a break, come back, talk ICAST here on a Monday. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back. Everybody loves to chase bass on the water. But is your most valuable asset protected when it's not on the water? Empire Covers can preserve your bass boat against even the harshest conditions. When the storm is coming, that bass boat needs to be protected. Check out EmpireCovers.com for all your cover needs. Empire Covers is the ultimate solution when it comes to protecting that asset. Empire Covers is the ultimate solution in easy protection for your truck, for your boat, for your car, anything that needs to be protected from the elements. BTL listeners can receive free shipping plus an extra 15% off their entire order on EmpireCovers.com. Just use the promo code BTL at checkout. Empire Covers. Protect what you love.
Elite FS puts the full range of Lowrance fish finding tools at your fingertips. Find fish with active imaging 3-in-1 with Fish Reveal. Target fish with active target live sonar and watch fish react to your lure as it happens. Built-in C-Map Contour Plus charts make it easy to find key fishing areas. But best-in-class charts and powerful sonar is only the beginning. It's easy to build your fully networked FS system. From sonar and waypoint sharing to controlling the Ghost trolling motor and power poles. Lowrance Elite FS. Targeting fish just got easier.
BassCat's legendary 20-foot platform has been paired with angler-approved accessories for 2021. Puma FTD features the proven hull used by many of the top names in bass fishing today, backed by a transferable lifetime warranty. The Puma FTD boasts a full team deck concept which enhances efficiency for you and your tournament partners. Turnkey tournament-winning performance. The Puma FTD SP from BassCat.
Let's face it, fishing electronics are no longer an afterthought. They've become a necessity. And at the Bass Tank, our experts match you with the right electronics, provide professional installation, and educate you to help maximize your catching results while providing support along the way. Because let's be honest, it's about catching, not just fishing. And when you're ready for better results, join the Bass Tank team. Visit us today on Facebook or go to thebasstank.com.
Monofilament. When, where, how, why, when would I fish it? Gerald, there's a lot of lines out there. When do I choose monofilament? Anytime your bait's floating. How about that? If you're going to throw top water and you don't want to throw it on a light braid, throw it on monofilament. For instance, I just left the Sabine a few months ago. I was throwing a small popper on 14-pound Supernatural. The line floats super right, but the castability of it will blow your mind. Supernatural monofilament to me is anything you want to throw on the surface, go with monofilament. Anything that's going under the water, you can go with fluoro.
I've made my living on the water for over 20 years.
For 14 years.
For over 23 years.
I've worn a bunch of different clothing brands over the years.
Some companies big.
And some companies small.
All of them said they were making clothing for us.
But none of them knew us.
None of them were us.
Except for one.
Except for one.
Except one.
AFCO.
AFCO.
AFCO. AFCO.
Fishing isn't part of us. It is us.
Everyone, Brandon Palnick here. People always be asking me what I got tied on. I'm like, X-Zone Lures. And they're like, Brandon, why you got X-Zone Lures tied on? And I'm like, let me show you why.
The bite.
Get out of there. Get out of there. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's freaking digging. Get in here. Oh, God. Giant. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
I think you get the point.
All right, we are back on a Monday with our special guest host, Mr. Ken Duke. And we're going to talk ICAST now, man. You ready?
I'm always ready. Hate that you weren't at ICAST this year. Always enjoy visiting with you there and going out and getting something to eat with some friends. You know, it's a good time.
Yeah, yeah. All right, man. What is the one thing that really caught your attention at this year's ICAST, Ken? I didn't mean to stump you, man.
Well, you know, I hate to offer a disclaimer, but here's kind of the deal. I worked for BASS for a long time, and I used to go to ICAST, and I'd look at the products. Now I work for Fish and Tackle Retailer, and I have a ton of meetings with people, and our meetings are usually just looking each other in the eye. I rarely get to look at new products, but I'll tell you a few that impressed me a lot, and they were some products that won awards at ICAST. One was the Humminbird Mega Live. Humminbirds finally got their live sonar thing going.
Forward-facing sonar?
Yeah, forward-facing sonar.
Right.
It's quite impressive. You knew that because Humminbird has such a strong position in the industry, you knew they were going to introduce something eventually, and they did. Garmin was first, Lowrance has come along with one, and now Humminbird's in that game. Just like the Garmin stuff was wildly impressive, the Lowrance stuff was enormously impressive. Well, the Humminbird thing is really cool too. And the other thing I was really impressed with is the Berkeley Powerbait Gilly, which won overall best of show, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I know you've got one there in the studio to show, but
somewhere
that impressed me. Yeah, somewhere. I've got one somewhere too. I think it's in my garage, which only take me 45 minutes to find it. But that impressed me. But my big takeaway from ICAST 2021 is just kind of a sigh of relief. We finally had a big in-person industry event. We had the Classic last month. We had ICAST this month. It feels good. It feels like we're getting back to some sense of normal. Here in Florida, we've largely been unmasked for a while now, and it feels good. Yeah, we've got some new variants of COVID-19, and those are problems. But we talked about playing defense earlier. I'm tired of playing defense in life. I'm tired of it.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do it much longer.
Yeah.
So no more playing defense in life.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to play defense. What do they say? Defense wins games.
They say defense wins championships is what I always hear.
Yeah.
But you still got to score, right?
Good point. Good point.
Still got to score. But ICAST was a really good show. There's about almost 10,800 people there.
Wow.
Which was a strong showing. Now in a normal year, I don't think we have those anymore. But in a normal year, ICAST would pull in about 15,000 people. We're talking about exhibitors. We're talking about buyers. We're talking about media. 15,000. So to do 10,800 during this pandemic period, after not having an in-person ICAST at all last year, I think was an enormous success. And as you know so well, ICAST has two great things that happen at ICAST. One is you get to see great new stuff, cool new stuff, and some really, really, really crappy, horrible, don't know how anybody decided to make it stuff. And number two is it's a reunion. There are people that I only get to see once or twice a year. Mark Jeffries is one of them. If it weren't for this computer screen, I would only see Mark once or twice a year probably. And so I'm very grateful for ICAST for the reunion aspect of it. You and I know a lot of people in the industry, and we consider them friends, even though we don't get to see them much. And that's one of the great purposes that ICAST serves.
All right. What was the vibe from a wholesale to manufacturer relationship? In other words, was there a lot of buying going on, Ken?
ICAST about 10, 12 years ago started to become more of a media show than a buyer's show.
Yeah.
So, and that was created with the guys I call it the GoPro on a stick guys.
Right.
Suddenly everybody had a media badge, and suddenly manufacturers, exhibitors started to think, oh, I can talk to this small independent buyer who might buy a case of reels from me, or I can talk to this GoPro on a stick guy who's reaching X hundred, X thousand people out there. And so the focus shifted quite a bit. So there's not a ton of buying at ICAST, even to this day, but the vibe at the show was better than I have ever seen in my life. Everybody seemed to be charged up about it. I did not hear anybody say they had anything less than a great show. And that's buyers, that's exhibitors, that's media. Everybody was just supercharged to be there, excited to be there. I've never seen the industry so optimistic. So it was a great experience.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think, and this is from a couple of questions on the comments and then also on the instant feedback, do you think that a limited number of the general population will be allowed ever to ICAST? And if so, would that be a good idea if you limited the number of passes or whatever? Say, be it 1,000 or 500 or whatever that number is.
Well, a limited number.
I don't mean to stump
public.
you, Ken.
But you always do.
No.
You always
That's
do.
not what I'm trying to do.
You and I are friends until the show starts, and then you ask me these tough questions, Mark.
No.
I'm messing with you. But, because I'm very conflicted about that issue, that very issue you're bringing up. And I want to answer the question: Do I think a limited number of general public will be allowed into ICAST? That's already happening, but it's already happening in a way that I don't think is particularly great. What's happening right now is that on Friday, the final day of ICAST, ASA has agreed to allow in a number of high school and college type anglers who are affiliated with BASS or Major League Fishing. Okay. I don't know what that number is. That number is in the low hundreds, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only general public coming to ICAST right now. Let me also say, and you know this so well, if you're a member of the general public and you've got a buddy in the industry who's got a company who's going to ICAST, you have no trouble getting a badge.
Yeah.
If you got a buddy who's got a booth at ICAST, he can get you a badge. You can go to ICAST. You can look around. ICAST is very cool. It's cool because it's a family reunion for you and me and for guys who have been in the industry for a while. And it's also an opportunity to see new stuff. But don't overvalue the opportunity to see new stuff from a consumer perspective. When you're looking at the new stuff at ICAST, if you're looking at a new reel, a new rod, a new lure, a new line, whatever it might be, that product you see at ICAST may never, ever, 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 ever hit the marketplace. If there's not enough buyer interest, if there's not enough media interest, if they subsequently have production or other issues, that product that you see and you think is either cool or crap may never hit the marketplace. Okay? So from a consumer perspective, maybe it's not a great idea to get too excited about some of those things. From a media or buyer perspective, it's important to get excited about those things because your excitement as a media person, your excitement as a buyer is what is going to drive those things to market ultimately. I would also say as a consumer, it's going to be really, really tough for you to see everything or even all you would like to see at an ICAST. The show has about 700 exhibitors. You can stop by and hit all the usual favorites, the giants of the industry, the Pure Fishings, the Daiwas, the Pradcos, the Strike King and Lew's, but it's also very cool to see the new little guys.
Yeah.
Guys who are just coming to the market with their new stuff, and they're small, but they're often as innovative or more innovative than the big guys. And that's where you see cool stuff from like Semper Fish rods or Busby tackle boxes or, any number of other manufacturers out there that are going to be players in the future.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Do you think,
I'm sorry. Let me say this.
You got one more thing? All right.
Yeah, sorry. I don't want the general public at ICAST.
Why is that?
Because it interferes with me doing my work.
No, but I get what you're saying because there's an agenda with what particular people and their responsibilities have to get done during ICAST. Correct,
Yeah,
Ken?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when I walk into a booth to talk to a manufacturer about a new product or something like that,
yeah,
it's tough if I'm being blocked by 18 high school kids all in their tournament jerseys who are asking for freebies.
Yeah.
I don't want that. That's very frustrating to me. That's counterproductive. I usually try to catch the guy's eye and then I go, see ya.
We actually
talking to these people instead of me.
we actually experienced that at the Classic.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times were we walking around and you were like, hey, man, we need to talk to Joe. And we walk over and we would get about 2 sentences in, and then Joe gets bombarded.
Joe gets bombarded, and a lot of these people who are not industry people, they're not working in the industry in that way. They don't appreciate the time, the other people's time, and they butt right in, and it's amazing to me. And if the manufacturer then diverts their attention to them, I'm gone. I'm gone because I've got another appointment or something like that. The other thing I want to tell you, Mark, is, and I've told you this about the Bassmaster Classic. We were both at the Classic and got to visit a little bit. It was a really good time for me. I must have been stopped 50 times by people telling me they love Bass Talk Live. They love Bass Talk Live at least 50 times. Now,
they love Ken Duke. That's what it is. It's all Ken Duke, man.
I wasn't wearing this to draw attention to it. They were spotting this.
Yeah. Yeah. Right
and it was awesome. I was stopped about that many times at ICAST. Now, I know a lot of people at ICAST, and people were stopping me anyway, but many of them were saying, hey, really enjoy Bass Talk Live.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Thanks for that.
No, that's cool. It's for the fans, man. The fans love Ken Duke, so that's good stuff.
Well, that's nice. But
all right, a couple more ICAST questions. I want to know the distribution issues that manufacturers have had in the U.S. Ken, I'm telling you, I went into an academy last week, and the shelves are still empty. I mean, they look a little bit better, but it seems to me that there are still major distribution and manufacturing issues due to the situation that everybody's dealing with from a staffing standpoint, from a production standpoint. What can you add on that?
It goes much deeper than that, Mark. And I feel like I only understand the tip of the iceberg. But let me throw some of this weird stuff at you. As a nation, we tend to import more than we export. So when a shipment comes in, let's say it's coming into Los Angeles or wherever, a port there, and it's got X hundred shipping containers on it, and some of them are full of fishing tackle, and then they hit the ground and they are dispersed throughout the U.S. And then that cargo ship has to go back to China, Japan, Taiwan, wherever.
Yeah.
Because there is something of a trade imbalance, because in many cases we're receiving more than we're sending out, that cargo ship waits and waits and waits until it has enough shipping containers on it to go back. It doesn't make sense for them to just immediately turn that sucker around.
Right.
When it's not full.
Right.
So that creates a problem. And of course, COVID presents a problem because some of these nations and so forth want to quarantine the crews and stuff like that. It's COVID started it. COVID is largely the cause a lot of it, but it runs much deeper. It becomes much more problematic.
Yeah.
And it has screwed things up for a much longer period of time than I anticipated, because I did not understand this giant mechanism of the world economy. And I still don't, and I probably never will.
Yeah.
But I'm learning a little bit more about it all the time. So yeah. And that's, there were big companies that did not exhibit at ICAST this year. Rapala, for example, did not exhibit at ICAST this year. And it's because in a lot of cases, these companies are not showing at ICAST because they don't have product to ship. They don't want to meet a bunch of angry buyers who are still waiting for a shipment they ordered a year ago.
Yeah.
Who wants to stand in a booth and get chewed out all day long?
Yeah.
And another thing you're seeing out there, and I don't know if you've had an opportunity to notice this, but if any of the the viewers and listeners out there have had this problem. They go to the website of the company and they want to order some plastic worms. They want to order some spinnerbaits. They want to order this. They want to order that. And the website's down to consumer purchases.
Yeah.
Well, the reason that website is down, apart from the fact it all boils down to supply, they don't have products to sell, and they don't want to sell you 3 spinnerbaits when they can't deliver 300 spinnerbaits to a dealer in Wisconsin. The last thing they want to do is piss off that dealer and make an individual customer happy, because that's bad math.
Yeah.
You know, they want everybody to be happy, but they have to start with the people who are buying the biggest volume, and they can't service those people right now because they don't have the product. One of the things I heard a lot on the show floor, Mark, was from buyers who were pissed off that some of the exhibitors there were rolling out these new things when they can't even get them the old stuff.
Man, I got to tell this story if I can find this. I had it queued up that I was going to throw it over there, and I moved my mouse and it went away. So I apologize, everybody, because this is a great story, and I'm glad that this comment was brought up because I want to share. Here it is right here. All right. Joe Public isn't good enough for Mark or Ken to talk to. I'm going to tell you something right now. This is so far from it. Here's what happened this past weekend, Ken. All right. I'm bowling one of my senior events down in the DFW area. All right. And I'm doing really well. I'm 5 games into it, you know, hovering around the top 5 in the standings after 5, and then going into game 6, a total disaster. And I'm not even going to get into it. It was part of the mental game. It was part of the learning process that I'm going through, trying to understand the lane conditions that exist down in Texas. And I've went too deep already. But I bowled 147. Ooh. All right? That was the lowest game that anybody bowled in the entire field. And it cost me making the final round. But hang on. After that game, I was just like, hey, I'm lucky to be alive. Was I mad? Absolutely. But after that game, going into game 7, I have a routine after I throw each shot. I come back and I kind of either stand or sit in the same place. After that game, I could have been a total jerk, but I was standing back by the little settee area where the general public, and I had a young man, I don't know how old he was, I think he was in college, come up to me, tap me on the shoulder, and he goes, "Mark, BTL, right? Right in the middle of the competition after I just bowled 147. I go, "Yeah, dude." He goes, "Listen." He goes, "I know you're bowling, but I want to ask you a topwater question."
Cool.
All right. I know you're stuck on a topwater, and you and Frank talk about topwater in the Carolina rig all the time, but I just want to ask you a quick question. This is while the tournament's taking place, and after I had just bowled 147, which was ridiculous, and I have nobody to blame but myself for that situation. But I went back after every shot and talked to that dude probably for 15 or 20 minutes during game 6.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm not the type of person that is going to talk to the fans that you and I and Matt and everybody care about from a BTL fan perspective, who's going to do that? Dude, I just bowled a game that cost me making the final round, and I wanted to make sure that I had a conversation with this guy. Well, number one, because he wanted to talk topwaters, which I love, because he wanted to talk about the striper day that me and Matt had at Texoma and a bunch of other stuff. The kid was fantastic. He was ate up with the game, and then finally he said, "Look," he goes, "I know you're trying to bowl, but I really appreciate you talking to me." Dude, what else was I supposed to do? I'm not going to be a jerk.
Yeah, let me pile on that guy who said that, because that's, and if anybody watching, listening has met me or Mark, and I'm not bigger than y'all. I am you guys. I'm watching this show when I'm not on the show. And I met a lot of people through BTL who've walked up to me at different things that I've been at, and I always have time for them. Here's what my objection is. Here's why I say I don't want the general public at ICAST. Let's imagine you at your workplace. I don't know what anybody watching this show does for a living, but let's say, for example, that they sell insurance, or they lay bricks, or they run a Fortune 500 company, or they teach school. How would you like me and Mark and about 50 other outdoor media people to show up and stand in your place of work and interfere with you and when you're trying to do your job? That would not go over well. You wouldn't like it. The people you work with wouldn't like it. And it would make everything about doing your job more difficult. That's what I'm objecting to. And only that.
Yeah.
I would hope that some of the folks who have met me, Mark, who have met you at these events, especially things that are really consumer shows like the Bassmaster Classic, man, I want the fans. I want to meet fans. I really do. I enjoy it. But ICAST is not a consumer event. It is a trade show. It is an industry show. And I want it to be that. The Bassmaster Classic, my gosh, the best times I had at the Bassmaster Classic was when I was talking to the BTL fans.
Yeah.
So, give me a break. Stop being an idiot and listen to what we're saying, because that's really a petty, little tedious thing to say.
Yeah.
And, I hope you get some perspective.
Yeah. Anyway, and somebody said, "Oh, did you bowl better?" I did. I went 238, 244 the next two games, but didn't make the final round because of that. Anyway, the conversation that I had with that kid, his name was Keith. I can't remember his last name. Was fantastic. So that's far from it, man. Love talking to people. Love talking, obviously, to anybody that wants to talk about what we do, and Ken's the same way. So moving on. All right, I want to ask you this, Ken. I have an idea. I have a concept. I don't know. It comes
you always have an idea. You always have a concept.
It comes from the fans, right? And I've had this comment and question asked several times in conjunction with ICAST, and I want to know if it would work. Would it be possible, say, the weekend, because ICAST doesn't take place on Saturday and Sunday, correct?
That's
Would
correct.
it be possible you have the ICAST show where everybody takes care of business and does what ICAST is designed to do, then in an area of the, whatever it is, the Orange County Convention Center, you have a open to the public show where the fans, if they want to, can actually purchase some of the stuff that was showcased during ICAST?
Well, again, that's the biggest problem. It is not a consumer show. There's not product there to sell, especially in a year like this where a consumer element would be a total disaster, Mark. There ain't enough to go around to sell to consumers. My gosh, if there were, I would have loved to have bought some of the stuff, but it really wouldn't work this year. And as far as making an element of the show a consumer show in the future, yeah, it could be done. But people need to remember the purpose of ICAST is to show off new stuff that except for some prototypes generally hasn't been made yet. You walk up to a Daiwa or a Pure Fishing or somebody, and a real manufacturer, for example, and you say, "Oh man, this is cool, this is great," and they'll sometimes say to you, "Yeah, that's the only one that exists." No, that's the only prototype that we have that looks like what the final product is going to look like, and after you set it down, I'm going to put it back in the little glass case, and or Ken, don't touch that. You get that sometimes, so it really is not consumer friendly in that sense. These products have not been made yet, by and large.
would it be good for the industry to do that if we didn't have all of these supply chain issues? In other words, would that be an opportunity for the first look? Somebody even suggested, hey, I'm willing to pay $5, $10, whatever the dollar amount is, to get into this place, to get a first look at maybe some of the stuff that they could be the first ones to get this stuff from a public sales standpoint. Would that work?
ICAST would have to change significantly.
Really?
It would need a bigger footprint at the Orange County Convention Center.
That building's huge, Ken.
Yes, but ICAST is not that entire building. They would have to expand. Let me tell you, Mark, I've been to the Osaka, Japan Tackle Show. And Osaka, they do exactly what you're talking about. They do a couple of days of industry and it's so cool. The exhibitors are in suits and ties. They're looking super duper sharp. There is a ribbon cutting ceremony with people in tuxedos opening the show. Yeah. And then on like the third day, they open it to the public. And Osaka's a big town. Osaka's about 30 million people. And 500,000 of them will show up on that day.
Wow.
And it's insanity. I was there. There's this special area where they do sales on that day. And I'm not as knowledgeable about what I was seeing as I should be. I don't speak Japanese. Yeah. But anyway, there were some baits I had seen over there. I wanted to check them out. I wanted to buy them once they were available. And so I went back there, and it was thousands of people pushing and shoving to get to these handful of lures. And I felt lucky to be a big fat American because I could push through the crowd better. But I mean, it was pushing and shoving. People were paying like $10 to be put into a raffle to get a one of those mother swim baits.
Wow.
To be put into a raffle. And if you won the raffle, you still had to pay full retail because they only had like 3 of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this. All right. I happen to have one of these right here.
Oh.
Okay. And it's kind of hard to get in this day and age.
Yeah, it is. It's wildly hard to get.
Very difficult to get, but I do have one of the new Berkeley Iaconelli baits.
It's called the Power Bait Gilly, Mark.
Correct. All right. Now, here's my question. In this day and age, the way that the fan and the consumer, their behavior really represents what I call now. In other words, when they see something, they want it now. I'm no different. When I see something that catches my eye and catches my attention, I want it now. So guess what? Now you've got all these videos. You got people talking about it. Heck, I even have one in my hand that I'm showing on the show right now. But the people can't get it. Do you think that the attention span of the consumer eventually just blows it off unless they make a mental note or they make a note and put it on a Post-it note and put it on their monitor, that they remember about this when it finally becomes available? Would it not be better for companies that if you're going to launch something at ICAST, that next week the consumer can go out and make that purchase? What are your thoughts, Ken?
Well, we're going back to the nature of ICAST again. If 15 years ago, when you and I were at ICAST, we were not putting these baits out there for everybody to see. Or certainly 20 years ago, we weren't. That push really started with Bass Zone and BASS when you were doing the thing you're still doing, and I was at BASS. That's when that push started to come out. And I think it happened because guys like you and me were looking for content. We were looking for something to talk about and something to show the fans.
Yeah. And
we didn't have anything because the tournament fishing was shut down for a month around ICAST. So we thought, let's turn ICAST into some content. Well, now we're letting the fans and the consumers know about these products. whereas before we weren't. Before, unless you were at ICAST, you couldn't see this stuff. So you're asking ICAST, you're asking the industry to change the way it does business. That would require, I think, a couple of quantum shifts. One might be a shift in terms of the timing of ICAST. Instead of having ICAST in July, you need to have ICAST in November or December, closer to the beginning of what would be called the fishing season over most of the country. The second thing you'd be asking the industry to do is to gamble in a bigger way than it's gambling now. You'd be asking them to have this stuff ready to ship, ready to make available to consumer immediately, which could work then, but you're also asking them to take a chance on whether or not these things would be well received by the audience.
Okay.
A lot of companies couldn't survive a couple of bad gambles.
Okay, I've got another bait here because it is a rarity, but I'm not going to disagree. I'm just going to state my point, Ken. All right, this is the new Stunna. The Stunna, all right? And what Hank Cherry has really brought this bait. I don't even
bait.
Yeah, and I don't even know is it available to retail consumers yet, Ken? Do you know? I don't think it is.
You put me on the spot. I've got one still in the
obviously
package.
I have one. Yeah.
They were showing it at the Classic Expo. They were certainly showing it at ICAST. I'm not certain it's available. I just don't know.
Okay. So exactly my point. Look, man, things have been done, and we're going to get into this after we take our break when we talk about scheduling. Some things have been done the same way for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
Because of the dynamic of demands of the consumer and flow of information, I think it's finally time to change the way that the distribution to the inline consumer happens based upon what you are showcasing. Because the information is so timely and so critical now, that how many of these do you think that Pure Fishing would have sold if it would have been readily and available after what Hank Cherry did, or after, let's say, the super promo that they did at ICAST? Guess what? On Monday, folks, you're going to be able to buy it because they're actually they're communicating via video, via press releases, via everything else that they're doing in coordination with ICAST. How many of these do you think that they would have sold?
A few. A
lot.
A few 100,000.
All right, now.
I mean, yeah, they'd have killed it. They'd have done tremendously well.
Exactly.
But who's to say they're not going to do that already? Because here's what's going to happen. Pure Fishing's marketing team, which is a bunch of super bright people led by Harlan Kent, John Schlosser, Mark Kempter, Kim Hoffman. Those people have been absolutely instrumental in getting these baits to where they are now. And I'm talking beyond the design team and the engineers and so forth back in Spirit Lake, Iowa. It's up to them. It's incumbent upon them. It's incumbent upon their PR firm, which is Gunpowder PR, led by Ryan Chuckle and our buddy Josh Ward.
Right.
But it's incumbent upon all these people to keep that fire burning. And I think they're not going to have any trouble because the thing has had so much success. The thing is going to be really hot going into the Bassmaster Classic 2022 because Hank Cherry's going to be practically fishing at home. And it's going to be a player. They're going to sell plenty. They're also Pure Fishing, which is kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the tackle industry room. And I want to talk about what Pure Fishing pulled off this year at ICAST, which is enormously impressive. But could they have sold a lot of them now? Sure. But they're still going to sell 1 billion of them.
Interesting. I personally just think, Ken, that doing the same thing, and it's not that what they're doing is unnecessary. I just think that there is a dynamic to position the product, which takes a lot of planning, a lot of preparation to get this to the end consumer when the success takes place with the anglers on tour and the promotion that you have at ICAST. Dude, how much good does it truly do? And I know they're going to sell them, just like what you said. But seriously, how much revenue are they missing out on because they haven't thought about planning the position of the product when the guys that they are paying to perform do well with their product, but they don't have it positioned in the marketplace?
But Mark, you're missing so much.
What am I missing, Ken? What am I missing?
You're missing production volume. Now, what you're talking about is a product that's been wildly successful. Hank Cherry wins the Bassmaster Classic on the thing. That's as good as you can do in terms of tournament performance. Okay, so he wins the Bassmaster Classic, and somebody in South Carolina at the Pure Fishing headquarters picks up the phone and says, we need 500,000 of those things. And then the whole production process starts. But let's say Hank Cherry doesn't win the Bassmaster Classic. Let's say he finishes 15th. Now they've made if they did that, if they ordered 500,000, maybe that's 300,000 too many. And look at all the money they would have lost. I mean,
yeah, but you and I both know, Ken, that the margins are pretty good on these things. All right.
The margins are pretty good, but you still don't stay in business and you don't have success if you wildly overshoot demand.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Let's say you decide that for the next episode of Bass Talk Live, you don't want Ken Duke. You think you're about to really kill it with an audience, so you're going to bring in, what a lot of people call the poor man's Ken Duke. You're going to bring in Brad Pitt. And Brad Pitt doesn't succeed wildly as a guest host on Bass Talk Live, and now you've just spent $3 million to get Brad Pitt. Mm-hmm. I think it's a similar analogy.
I get it. And look, I understand and I get the way that manufacturing works with this particular product. I get it. That's why I'm bringing up, is there a dynamic shift? Could there be a dynamic shift in the way that manufacturing is done in coordination to be able to position the product once you launch it to get it to the fans quicker? All right. I get how the system and the cycle works right now. What I'm saying is that cycle has been the same way for numerous years. Are we finally at the point where a dynamic shift could take place in that manufacturing and distribution cycle?
Well, first, I would argue with you that the system hasn't been the same for decades. I think the system is always evolving. Mm-hmm. ICAST used to be later. It's earlier now. The Bassmaster Classic is now the launching pad of a lot of new products, especially where they're trying to create consumer awareness. And I would bet you that the Stunna is available on the market, in the marketplace right now. I would bet you that it is. I don't know that, but because they showed it at the Classic, I'd bet it is available.
Okay.
And I think that the only perfect machine out there is the free market. And I do think the free market is a perfect machine. Are there challenges with the free market? Does the free market always respond as quickly as we'd like? Yeah, there are challenges. No, it doesn't always respond as quickly as we like, but it's constantly evolving towards some perfect kind of efficiency, some perfect kind of price thing. It's only when we monkey with it. It's only when we fix prices and we try to artificially control demand or supply that the market fails us. And the market is constantly evolving. Will ICAST one day be in October because we need it to be closer to the launch of the fishing season? Maybe. Yeah. Will all these things change? Yeah, they're going to adapt. They're going to adapt. Will the Bassmaster Classic move back to the summer? That's what some people were talking about this year. Well, the Classic loses a lot of clout if it moves back to the summer, because then it's not the launching pad of all these new consumer products. If the Classic is in June and ICAST is in July, the industry is not going to be as interested in the Bassmaster Classic. Mm-hmm. So yeah, these little fine tunings, the marketplace needs to handle them. And things like COVID cause a blip in that radar. Yeah. They're not the norm. They're a strange little thing that happened right here, and we have to adapt quickly. But that doesn't mean that those adaptations are going to be lasting, or that those adaptations are good long term.
Ken, you rock, dude. You bring up some great points, and I love having these discussions with you because there are very few people in this industry that know more about what we just talked about than you. And I like to look at it from the outside and see how things are done from not just a host perspective, but from a fan's perspective too. And bottom line, let's face it, we've had the discussion that, oh yeah, people are using jerkbaits a little bit more than just in the early spring. We've seen that with what Kevin has done, but a fan brings up a great point. It's hard to sell jerkbaits in the summertime, which is a great point.
Well, it is hard to sell jerkbaits in the summertime, and a lot of people would say, oh, we need ICAST in the winter. Well, no, we don't need ICAST in the winter. But let me back up. Hard to sell jerkbaits in the summertime. Not to retail and wholesale buyers, it's not. Because they're not planning for next week like the consumer is. I might go to the store today and not be interested in a jerkbait because my water here is 90 degrees. But if I'm a buyer, now is when I want to order jerkbaits so that I can have them in January or February, so I can sell them to the consumers who are now looking for jerkbaits.
Yeah.
Somebody might think, oh, we need to move ICAST to the winter. No, we don't need to move ICAST to the winter. Remember, the fishing season in the U.S., by and large, the way the industry thinks about it, starts in about February. Okay? So you can't have a December or January ICAST, because then the manufacturers don't have time to get their production rolling and have those products ready to send to the retailers, and so they can have them in February or March or whenever they want them.
Yeah.
So these fine-tuning things, it's not easy. Anybody who wants to say, oh, then they just move it to here. You're wrong. You haven't thought it all the way through.
Yeah.
It has repercussions. There is a butterfly effect. If you move one thing, that's going to cause other things to shift. And it's only if you have a perfect holistic view of things, which I do not have, that you can make these changes and truly anticipate what's going to happen. I'm not that guy. I don't have a perfect perception of the industry, nor can I anticipate what would happen if I can guess at what would happen if we change this, we tweak that, but it is a guess, and no doubt I'm forgetting 3 other things that will happen.
Yeah. I didn't lose another one. We're just having a conversation. We're not having an argument. Come
No,
on, Jim.
Absolutely no.
Jeez.
Oh, did somebody say you lost another one?
My record's like 126 and 247 or something like that. I don't know.
Well, as long as people are saying I win, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I like that comment. Move ICAST back to Vegas. Absolutely. I know you wouldn't like that, but I'm all about it.
Oh, let me talk about that. Here's some things that some of the folks watching and listening are not aware of, perhaps. Here's the biggie. Let me just start with the biggie. This is a big enough reason. ICAST this year, in the middle of the pandemic, or hopefully toward the tail end of the pandemic, drew 10,800 people. I'm within 100 people, I think. 10,800 people came to ICAST this year. In a normal year, like 2019, hopefully 2022, more than 15,000 people will come to ICAST in Orlando. If ICAST goes back to Las Vegas never cracked 10,000.
Wow.
Never cracked 10,000.
Yeah.
Look at if you had a map of the U.S. and the headquarters of all the tackle companies and in a red dot, and the red dot was sized based on how big they were. Here's Pure Fishing, here's Joe Bob's Jigs, they're in the east.
Yeah.
They're in the south.
You're right.
These people are not going to be happy if you move it to Las Vegas. The industry wants to be in Orlando. Attendance is better in Orlando. The after surveys are better in Orlando. Orlando is better on rates for hotels, for booth space, Orlando is more family friendly. So if a tackle industry person wants to bring his family to the event, it's easier, perhaps better in Orlando. So it's an opportunity for somebody to have a less expensive vacation because he's already got to go there for work. I know lots and lots of people whose families are in the parks while they're on the floor at ICAST.
Yeah.
So Las Vegas did not play ball when they had a chance to keep ICAST there. ICAST used to be in Vegas about 2 years out of every 3. But now it's been in Orlando for about the last 5, 6 years, 7 years. And it's going to be in Orlando through 2026. Okay.
Wow.
I believe that's already been committed to. So don't tell me bring it back to Vegas. As much as I like Las Vegas, I like taking my wife. We like going to see Penn and Teller or something.
Yeah.
I like playing in the Wright and McGill poker tournament with Mark Jeffries.
Yeah.
There are a lot of great things about Las Vegas, but none of them have anything to do with the fishing tackle industry. Okay. So don't tell me it should go back to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
You're not looking at the big picture.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, a lot of people want you to do.
Did I win again?
Yeah, you won again. Yeah, I'm on a 120 losing streak here. Anyway, a lot of people want you to do the world record show, and I think what we're going to do on that is we're going to make that part of our 24-hour marathon and get you on to talk about the largemouth and the smallmouth world record and dive into that. So a lot of people want to know, Ken.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. And another reason about Orlando that's a big deal is, look at what we have here. What is less of a fishing town than Las Vegas?
Good point.
Oh my God. Orlando is easy to get to. A lot of places fly straight to Orlando. Yeah. Florida is the fishing capital of the world. Here's a stat that might blow people away. 25 to 30 cents out of every dollar spent on sport fishing in America is right here in Florida. 25 to 30 cents is in Florida. I live in Orlando. I am an hour from the Atlantic. I am an hour from the Gulf. There is no place in the state of Florida more than 54 or 55 miles from salt water. If you're a manufacturer and you want to take media or buyers on a cool little junket to saltwater fish or freshwater fish, it is so easy here. So
nice.
In Las Vegas, they don't let you fish in those Bellagio fountains.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Hey, I know there's been anglers that have made it on tour that have been from Las Vegas. How about Salt Lake City? Anybody ever made it on tour from Salt Lake City? Ken?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
No, see, there's another place. Don't have ICAST in Salt Lake City, man. It's not really a big fishing town.
Well, not so much ICAST, which has only been around technically since 2022, but the precursor to ICAST was AFTMA, the American Fishing Tackle Manufacturers Association show, which did move around the country more. But there's also a good reason for making a permanent home for ICAST, which is what Orlando seems to have become. Yeah. And that is that everybody kind of knows the layout of the floor now. Everybody kind of knows where they want to stay. Everybody kind of knows where they want to take their clients out to dinner. Everybody's kind of learned how to get around International Drive and so forth. And Mark, if you ever want to come a day early or stay a day late, I'll take you fishing.
All right.
It's I'm sorry, and thus end my Orlando rant. I think that was enough for me to earn my giant check from the Orlando CVD.
Very nice. All right, we're going to take our final break, come back, and talk schedules. We're going to dive into that, Ken. People want us to give some more thoughts on the announcement of the Elite Series schedule, and then the Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit schedule came out. And I'll just say this, and we'll jump into it after the break. Same old, man. Same old song and dance. We'll get into it. Everybody stay tuned here on a Monday.
know what works. Now you need a bunch of them so you don't run out on your next fishing trip. The Big Bite Pro Packs feature 25 baits per pack at a price far below that of having to buy 5 packs of regular baits. Now the Pro Pack has a big brother, the Mega Pack. The Mega Pack features 100 of your favorite baits.
With these, one bag is usually plenty to get through the day. It helps me stay organized, helps me save money, helps me catch more fish.
All of us on the Pro Tournament Trail use Gamakatsu hooks.
Why?
Because they are absolutely the best.
It's not about how many bites you get,
it's how many you put in the boat.
Gamakatsu makes hooks for every fishing style.
We didn't come this far to lose fish.
Did you?
For more information, visit gamakatsu.com.
The Little John family of crankbaits designed by top tour pro John Cruz have excelled at catching bass in any condition for years. They all feature a flat-sided design and paint jobs that are seldom seen in mass production bait. The Little John family also expands with new rattling versions of the Little John 50 and Little John 50 MD. Both of these baits are proven fish catchers that will now be available in rattling versions for stained and muddy water. They feature the same great action and diving depths as the original 50 and MD sizes.
The Ned Rig. What rod should I be using with the Ned Rig? My favorite is the Denali Lithium multi-spin rod. It's our 7'4" length, great Ned Rig rod. It's got a great sensitive tip on it. It's long enough where I can make long casts, which you're usually fishing clear water with a Ned Rig, and it's got enough backbone to get those fish in. So check it out, Denali Lithium Series 7'4" multi-spin.
Pro-inspired, pro-designed, tested and proven by legends on the water, dominating the tournament trail for over 50 years. Everything you need, one legendary brand. Strike King.
Hey guys, Major League Fishing Pro, Jacob Wheeler here with my new Signature Series line of rods with Duckett Fishing. We have my 7.2 cranking rod right here. Crankbaits can be very fickle, and having the right, having a lot of tip can be too much, and having not enough tip can, lose a lot of fish. So you really got to be careful. There's one or two techniques that I'm really adamant about having the perfect action as a crankbait, especially like a square bill, a DT6, those medium running crankbaits in the springtime when those fish's mouth are pretty tough. That's when I'm really on top of having my actions just perfect.
All right, we are back, kicking off the week with Mr. Ken Duke. And you're switching hats. It's a smooth move there, Ken.
And I got nothing but hats here, man. And I'm proud to have the BTL hat. Like I said, it was crazy at the Classic and at ICAST how many people walked up to me and they know me not from decades in the industry, but from the times you've had me on BTL. So thanks again for that, Mark.
Hey, man, you're welcome anytime. All right, real quick, and then we're going to jump into the scheduling discussion. Jennifer wants to know, do you think that there's a retail company out there that is willing to take the risk on a particular bait, betting on the fact that one of the pros are actually going to catch him really good in the Classic, to where immediately after the Classic, that bait would be exclusively available, say at an Academy, Bass Pro, Tackle Warehouse, whatever it is? It's a good question.
Jennifer, you ask a tough, long, and difficult question here. First of all, I cannot think of a retailer other than a Bass Pro Cabela's that would have the clout to command that kind of exclusivity. Okay? So that would be the only player out there that would do it. And frankly, I cannot imagine that they would ever go to a manufacturer and gamble on such a thing. Now, here's what they might do. Here's what might work out for them. Let's say that Bass Pro had a staffer, a pro staff angler on their team who not only did rods and reels, which you see with, for example, Edwin Evers, Rick Clunn, guys like that. They are Bass Pro Shop staffers who use those rods and reels. But let's say Bass Pro signed them to a lure contract as well. And Mark, I can't think of a single pro on any of the tours who is just a Bass Pro Shops lures guy. Can you?
No.
But let's say there was one. Let's say suddenly that Mark Jeffries is sponsored by Bass Pro Shops for lures, and he makes the classic, and he's only able to fish Bass Pro lures. Then that works, but I think that's the only way that could ever happen.
Okay. All right. And then another question from the instant feedback, and I was wondering this too. Matt and I kind of talked a little bit about it. Seth Feider winning Angler of the Year on the Elite Series. Are we going to see the needle moved when it comes to left-handed bait casting reels?
I hold this up. I'm going to explain this in a minute. But
folks, hang on a minute. For those that are listening on the podcast, tell them what you just showed to all the fans.
I held up a book that was published in the late 90s by a guy named Rich Forehand, a dude who's best known for being out in California and not only a very avid angler, but close friends with Gary Klein. He was also Gary Klein's business partner in a company called Black Weapon. They made jigs and hooks and some things. The title of the book is Power Hand Bait Casting. And I'll talk about it in just a moment, but you talk about moving the needle with regard to left-hand retrieve reels. Well,
bait casting
reels. Yeah. Back when we were young, Mark, and we were just starting to get serious about our fishing and learning our first bait casters, which would have been in the early 70s, most of the reels on the market were not available in left-hand retrieve. And the ones that were available in left-hand retrieve were the most common ones sold, only the biggest sellers. You couldn't get anything specialized or different in a left-hand retrieve reel. We were talking, I can't think of anybody who's ever won Angler of the Year who was exclusively a left-hand retrieve bait caster guy. There are some guys who use left-hand retrieve reels because there's some guys who use right-hand retrieve reels but are left-handed, like Denny Brower.
Right.
Anyway, let me back up a second. This guy, Rich Forehand, in his book Power Hand Bait Casting, one of the things he advocates, and you and I know a lot of guys who believe this, believe that you're making a mistake when you crank with your power hand. You're making a mistake. You need to be casting with your power hand and holding onto the rod with your power hand, because you're going to give a better hook set, and you don't have to change hands, and you're more efficient and so forth. And you and I know a lot of guys who do that. My buddy Patrick Pierce is always trying to tell me I need to be doing that, and I do it when I am fishing, flipping and pitching. I flip and pitch with a left-hand retrieve reel, but everything else for me is right-handed, and it's just second nature to change the hand, and as it is for you. I don't think Seth Feider is going to be a harbinger of the future with regard to left-hand retrieve reels. But I do believe that 95% of the Elite Series next year, when they start the season, will have a mullet.
I think I'll disagree with you on that one. I might win that argument. Who knows? Maybe everybody shows up with the mullet. Who knows? Maybe it's back-end style. Hey, somebody also wants to know, and then we're going to dive into the scheduling discussion, what percentage of reels, the ratio, not the gear ratio, but the ratio of reels are right-handed compared to left-handed?
In the bait casting market, and I don't know the exact number, but in the bait casting market, it is probably something close to 9-1 right-handed.
Wow.
In the spinning market, of course, almost every production model spinning reel anymore is interchangeable.
Yeah.
And what's weird is, and again, this is another topic that you and I have talked about briefly off the show. I'm blown away by the number of talented young anglers who cast a spinning rod with their right hand and then switch it over and turn the reel with their right hand. Jacob Wheeler, among others, does that. It only seems to be the young guys, but when you and I were young and learning to do this, we were taught that one of the great advantages of spinning tackle was you never had to change hands.
Yeah.
And I don't get why they're doing that unless it's something to do with that power hand thing, but
yeah,
the antithesis of the power hand theory.
Hey, can you still get that book that you showed? Is it still available somewhere?
It is long out of production.
Okay.
But you can go to, you can try eBay, of course. I don't think you're going to be able to find it on Amazon at all. But I hate to say this. This is like Kevin Van Dam or Edwin Evers giving away one of their best tips. It pains me to do it, but I'll do it. ABEbooks.com. ABEbooks.com stands for Advanced Book Exchange. ABEbooks.com is a great place to find any old book you want to find. Yeah. It's international, and it's really a great place to go.
What reel is that on the cover? Is that an old Shimano?
Yeah, it looks like an old Corrado.
Yeah, the green one.
Yeah, it looks like a first generation Corrado to me.
I still have some of those, man.
I do too. Those things are bulletproof. Those will outlast our grandkids.
I know. All right, man, let's jump into the scheduling discussion. We'll start with the Elite Series. They came out with the dates and the venues. Starting out in February, season wraps up in August. Typical stuff, man. Florida, obviously the Classic being at Lake Hartwell, then they go back to Santee, they go back to Chick, they go back to Fork, and obviously they go back to the SLR. They go back to, how do you say it? The Oahe.
I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, and then back to La Crosse. All right, dude, what's your thoughts?
I'm always disappointed when the schedule doesn't have at least one new venue. I mean, you got 100 anglers. That's really not that many. You can spread 100 anglers over 28,000 acres pretty well. They do it at Fork. It's gotten to be where they do it at Fork quite often, and Fork is about 27,000 surface acres. I would like to see them find at least one new venue every year. I get it that they're not going out west, but it's been quite a while since they've been out west. I guess those are my gripes, and I'd like to see them. Well, I'd like to see them take the Classic somewhere where we might see some bigger catches. Greenville is a great host to the Classic, and that's of course why they're going there, because Greenville will pay. Greenville knows how to do a Bassmaster Classic. Greenville has a lot of talented people like Neil Paul who are ready to roll, and they ensure it's going to be a quality experience. But I'd like to see some other places.
I agree. Now, let me ask you this: the obviously money is the driving force in this, and the relationship that the communities have with bass, and it is what it is. But as a fan base for the Bass Elite Series brand, what are your thoughts about the fan base growing, let's just say, tired of seeing the same venues, the same time of the year, the same patterns, the same techniques? Is that in any way hurting the brand because of repetition, Ken?
If it's hurting, it's not hurting much. I think we still see some variety in these events. I mean, yeah, they may go to the St. John's quite often, but it's often a different technique, because one year they catch them during the spawn, the next year it's pre-spawn or post-spawn, and things do change up a little bit. Different guys win. We've seen Rick Clunn win 2 on the St. John's, and then last year he finished last. We've seen similar things with other things, so I don't think that's so much the problem. I just like to see him bring it to a different stage, and to bring in different fans physically to the event. But I got a lot of I got a lot of improvements for bass whenever they want to call me and hire me as a consultant. How about this, Bass?
Yeah.
How about having some free booth space at Elite Series tournaments for your local affiliated bass clubs so they can recruit? How about that?
That's
how
a good
about
idea.
opening it up to a local antique lure and tackle collecting organization so they can show people a little history of the sport? How about that?
Yeah.
How about involving some people on your live broadcasts who are local legends in the area and may have won big BASS tournaments out there in the past? They've never been open to that. I tried to get them to do that a decade ago. They wouldn't do it. How about that?
Ken, there's
those
three.
Those are free. The real assignments cost money.
Good point, man. All right. Besides the obvious in this schedule, there's three things that really I'm somewhat surprised by. All right. One, no events in Alabama. Two, no events in the Ozarks region. Right, be it Missouri, Arkansas, and I'm even going to throw Oklahoma in there.
Is there one that's still TBA on the list?
There is one still TBA, but I think that's going to be the TTBC.
Gotcha.
All right, probably going to be somewhere in Texas, probably.
I've heard that might not be part of the schedule anymore. I don't know, but that's only a rumor.
Whatever. I mean, that's TBA.
Yeah.
And then the third thing was, why is North Carolina continuing to be left out of this schedule? When is the last time they have been back to High Rock Lake?
Ooh, it's been a while. Have they been to High Rock almost since the classics of the 90s? I mean, they were there. They were there for a major. Remember the majors? They were there for a major in the mid-2000s, I think.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Yeah. Well, I think one of the problems with the North Carolina reservoirs is, and I'm going off memory, which is shakier as every day passes, but a lot of the North Carolina reservoirs are not gigantic. You know, they're not 50, 60,000 acres. But you don't need a 50, 60,000 acre reservoir to host one of these 100 angler tournaments, especially if you've got a lake with a lot of shoreline.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously money is the driving factor in this, along with connectivity. They have to have the internet connectivity. But Ken, I am just shocked that there's nothing in the Ozarks region.
Yeah, that's unusual. That's kind of weird. Well, I'll tell you what. Here's part of the reason. You know, when Jerry McInnes was a minority owner back from around 2010 until 2017 or so, whatever it was.
Yeah.
He always brought one to Arkansas. I'm sure that's how he looked like a big man in town, was to have one in Arkansas every year. So every year they'd go to Dardanelle or Bull Shoals or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the folks in Arkansas loved it, and they showed up in good numbers. But I think that was just him showing off around home.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying Old Hickory. The last time an event was there, a big event, I remember Kevin Worth won an Elite Series event. That was because of a cancellation on the Arkansas River or something. Yeah.
They had to move it to Old Hickory.
Yeah. Nashville, great town, great area to have an event there. But just
it is, but you know, Nashville does not need.
No. It's like Vegas. They don't need ICAST. Yeah. You know, they could.
That's why the Bassmaster Classic hasn't been back to the Kissimmee chain.
Yeah.
Orlando doesn't notice that the Bassmaster Classic is here.
Yeah. I asked this question to the fans, I think a week ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, Ken. I asked if the fans were tired of seeing the smallmouth events. The same thing over and over and over. And you know, the response was, it was probably 90% yes, 10% no. It gets very monotonous.
Agree. Yeah. Well, and I'm all about that. I agree. Absolutely. I like a smallmouth event. Hey, they're a wildly important species. Let's have smallmouth events, but let's not put them right at the end of the season where everything is on the line and where the winner is averaging 4.5 pounds and 53rd place is averaging 4 pounds, 6 ounces. You know, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. That adds too much of an element of luck to the event. You know, whether you're finding the fish that weigh 4.5 or the fish that weigh 4 pounds, 7 ounces.
Yeah.
Should not be 30 places in the standings. And too often that's what happens there. And let me backtrack just a second, Mark, on getting the Classic and other events, places here. You know, Nashville is not going to be interested in the Bassmaster Classic, but there are probably some small communities around Nashville that would be great hosts. And I say that because here in Orlando, you know, the city of Orlando might not be interested in the Bassmaster Classic, but the city of Kissimmee or Osceola County would be a great host for a big event like that. And that's what I want to see. I want to see them bring big events to larger metropolitan areas, but not necessarily not Pittsburgh, but, you know, Kissimmee, Florida, not Orlando, but maybe a suburb of Nashville.
Yeah.
I think that could be really good.
All right. I want to answer this question from Brian. Mark, how many years will we talk about another boring schedule? Look, I want your thoughts on this too, Ken, but I'm going to say this. I truly believe until the organizations, not just Bass, I'm talking MLF and anybody else, including the MPFL, until they come up with a new revenue stream to make up for the revenue that they would be lost and the communities not having to write that big fat check, and they get creative and do develop new revenue streams to make up for that money or actually increase revenue, I think you're going to see all organizations continue to go back where the money is. Agree or disagree, Ken?
Oh, I agree absolutely with you. And to say another boring schedule, yeah, I don't think every schedule is exciting, but let's give Bass some credit. It wasn't that long ago that Oahe was brand new for Bass. It wasn't that long ago that Fork, where the fishing has been amazing and historic, where Fork was brand new. You know, the lake wasn't brand new, but it was brand new to Bass. So kudos to Bass for bringing those venues online and making them part of the circuit. That's great. I love it. I would like to see it more often. Maybe every year, one new venue. But there are other problems that we haven't talked about here. And here's the biggest. When's the last time somebody built a 25,000 plus acre lake? The last one I can think of off the top of my head, and I'm no doubt screwing up here, but is maybe like Truman or West Point. And those were 45 years ago.
Yeah.
They're not building new major reservoirs anymore. And if you're not building new major reservoirs anymore, it's tough. It's tough to find new venues. And if these communities that do have suitable fisheries are not interested in playing, well, you simply can't go there.
Yeah.
There are things like Mark was talking about earlier. You know, you got to have some connectivity. You got to have a local convention and visitors bureau, CVB, that wants to play. They've got to have a budget to support such a thing. They've got to be willing to come up with enough hotel rooms. There's got to be a decent launch facility and facility for the weigh-in. You know, these things, we might roll out the name of a lake that we think would be good, but unless all these elements are present, it doesn't work there. It doesn't work. And you can't do it where it doesn't work.
Yeah, here's an interesting comment from Mark Lamb that says, I think as fans, we just get tired of seeing the same thing. We just like the variety. Mix it up, mix up the locations to at least different times of the year at the least. That's a pretty good point.
It is a good point, but Mark Jeffries and Mark Lamb, you know, the schedule is not just a random series of blue dots placed around the country. The schedule also has elements of a chain. You want to take these guys and put them on the road for, 3 weeks or a month, and then let them get back home.
Yeah.
And then another 3 weeks or a month and let them get back home. You want to do back-to-back events where you can. So you limit their time on the road, but you're efficiently getting your events knocked down. You want to you also, and this is a big thing too. You've got to schedule by the weather to a degree so that you're not putting the fish any more at risk than necessary.
Yeah.
That's why the season moves north. So you might say to yourself, hey, it'd be really cool to see Oneida in May. well, yeah, maybe it would be really cool to see Oneida in May, but you can't afford to be that far north that early in the year. If you're going to start your season in Florida or Alabama or Georgia in January, you've got to move north. It's not just random plotting, it's a chain. It's factored by weather. It's factored by so many things. It's a complicated process.
Would it be a good idea to engage the fans, any of the organizations, right? This is not just Bass or MLF, to engage the organizations to where the fans actually vote or choose where one of the locations are? How would that go over, Ken?
Very poorly. Very poorly. Imagine the leverage. Let's throw out Grand Lake. Mm-hmm. Imagine the leverage Grand Lake would have if they knew that the fans had already voted for it. What are the odds that Grand Lake is going to write a check to Bass if the fans just elected it the place they wanted to see? Now Grand Lake is going to sit back and go, we're pretty dang cool, aren't we?
Well, they would be cool, but once again, that goes back to the model that you got to create different types of revenue stream to make up for that revenue that is not counted on by the communities.
Well, I think Bass plans on making up some of that revenue by creating a bigger and better event so that the community is willing to pay for it. And Bass is also willing on some level to hold some of these venues hostage. Hey, if you're not willing to play ball with us, we can go across the street. Or even better, and Ray Scott played this game with the very first event he ever hosted, the All-American on Beaver Lake in Arkansas. You're not the only town on the lake.
Yeah.
If I go to the other end of if you're on the upper end of the lake and you don't want to play ball, I'll go to the lower end of the lake, and there's a city down there too. And they've got a ramp. And I'll just host my tournament down there. And you'll get a little bit of benefit from the experience, but not what you might have.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and then you have the Marshall situation too that Gary brings up. Whether or not they would have to send guys out by themselves and all the other things. Look, I think
we get Marshalls at Oahe.
I don't know. I have no idea. Look, I think both you and I would agree, though, that scheduling, it is a difficult task because there's so many factors logistically that you have to work out. And obviously you have to have the communities that are willing to put up the revenue to bring whatever organization you're bringing to these communities. There's a lot more to it than the money, but the money is the driving force in this. Now, Brian brings up another subject. You remember they did have a West Coast swing scheduled. I think they were going to the Delta and the Columbia River. You remember that, Ken?
Vaguely, Mark. I do vaguely.
And then what happened was, and there, Bass is calling you right now.
It's not Bass, but it is somebody I don't need to talk to. How about that?
Okay, all right, good deal. Anyway,
I don't know how to turn off that ringer. I don't know. I'm not technologically proficient.
That's all right.
Otherwise,
Adds
I
to
would
the
turn
show.
off the ringer.
It's all good, man. Anyway, I believe what happened is there was some major concern about the time that it was going to take to go between the Delta all the way to the Columbia River, which is a long haul. And finally they were like, hey, and there were some other factors, hey, we're going to cancel this and move on down the road. But I saw, I had an email from a fan yesterday. They paid $5.05 per gallon to fill up their boat. It's a lot. And it is expensive. And I don't know if I ever told you my idea. Dude, I had the perfect situation. A lot of it is getting out there. And if you had two events out there, what you do is you cut a deal with Burlington Northern Santa Fe, and you take one of those automotive rail cars. You have a meat place, coordinated meat places all across the country, and guys put their trucks and boats on the automotive cars, and then you fly out there. You pick up your boat. You gain another.
Pretty cool. That's a great idea. Although I would worry right now, everybody's responsible for their own gear. And I can see that at the ramp, All right, Seth Fighter, yours is over in lot B. Bill Lowen, Bill, yours fell off the truck. We're real sorry about that. Bernie Phillips, yours is in lot, like that. That's what I'd be afraid of.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, the West Coast swing that they had scheduled, there were a lot of other things going on, but the distance was one of the main concerns. Anyway.
But if you want to make this a truly national circuit, I think you got to go out west every 3 or 4 years at least. And why not make it a true Western thing? You go to the Delta, you go to Clear Lake, you go to the Columbia, you go to Roosevelt, you go to whatever. Meade, Bass hasn't been to Meade since 1971. You go out there and you just say, you know what, half the circuit this year is going to be out west, and it's going to be kind of a landmark year for the league.
All right, now on the elite side, on the MLF side, on the MPFL side, any of them, doesn't matter. Does the rookie class, do they have a disadvantage because now these sophomore guys, the junior guys, even the guys that have been out there forever, and I know what the argument's going to be. I can hear it right now coming at me. Not from you, but from the fans. With this repetitive schedule and going to the same places during the same time of the year, does that not create a slight disadvantage for the rookies because the seasoned vets and the guys that have really put in the time and effort to, if they failed on these venues, to capitalize on their mistakes and really learn what was going on at that body of water? I know several guys that if they had the time, they would actually stay, and then the tournament's gone, and they're learning about the mistakes that they made to where they don't create that situation on the water again from a mistake standpoint. Do you feel that a repetitive schedule actually keeps the rookie class at a disadvantage?
Well, almost everything puts the rookie class at a disadvantage. Almost everything, but certainly a repetitive schedule does. These guys who are rookies, they start their careers, in my opinion, by making one big mistake that's hard to avoid. And the big mistake is they pair up with other rookies. And they travel together, or they practice together, or they exchange information together. And that's almost a recipe to suck, is what that is. Because you're starting at a disadvantage by being out there by yourself and not having the experience. And then you're compounding it by let me double down on inexperience here and pair up with this other rookie. If you possibly can, I always thought the rookies should try to pair up with somebody who's experienced and who has had some level of success. And I realize that's not always easy. And sometimes it may be impossible, but it's a good move when you can do it. These guys are at a disadvantage in every aspect, not only in not knowing the body of water, but also in not knowing where to stay, not knowing where to eat, not knowing where to fill up their boat with gas, having to learn all these things. All these things take time. All these things take mental energy. The rookies are at a disadvantage in every way, shape, and form.
Look, I know for a fact, and it's not Matt, although Matt has been doing his homework, but not at the ultimate capacity, all right, with the assumption or future view that you might qualify for the Elite Series, are already learning and spending time on these body of waters that were announced before they go off limits, but with no guarantee that they're not even going to make the Elite Series.
Yeah, there's an argument that becoming a pro fisherman is a really bad career move, and I think that there's a lot of truth to that. But a guy like Matt, who's been around the industry for a long time, and any fan who has followed the sport for a long time knows there are just some places you cannot afford to suck. You cannot afford to suck on the St. Johns River. You cannot afford to suck on the Kissimmee Chain. You cannot afford to suck on Gunnersville, Kentucky Lake, the Tennessee River, Rayburn and Toledo Bend, some of those New York lakes. you can't afford to suck there, because you're going to see those places over and over and over again. And you certainly cannot expect to ever win Angler of the Year if you're really, really terrible on more than one of those bodies of water.
Do you think that the angler of today is much more dedicated in a modern way as far as tournament preparation than the anglers back in, say, the 80s and 90s?
Ooh, what a great question. Well, in a modern way, you're talking about using the technology available
Using
today?
the technology, taking the additional time that once the schedule's out, hey, like Ito, he's already in South Dakota trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah, the situation with today's angler is so different than it was with those guys, in that with the technology we have available today, these guys can familiarize themselves with a body of water in a way that guys couldn't do then. They're not hitting the water cold in 2021 the way Rick Clunn was hitting a body of water cold in 1974.
Yeah.
Where he didn't have Google Earth. He didn't have this high-tech mapping. His topo map had 20-foot increments. It's very, very different. And they can unlock. I hate that word, actually. I shouldn't ever say that word again. They can get a feel for, they can gain an appreciation of, they can get some insight into these bodies of water in a way that's far faster, far easier, and far better than what was available to guys decades ago.
What about the work ethic? That's kind of where my question kind of went. Obviously, with the means.
Yeah. Okay. Work ethic.
Yeah.
Work ethic. That's a good one. I don't think guys practiced as hard back then as they do today in terms of the physicality of it. I don't think they tried to stay in shape the same way. I don't think they tried to practice on those bodies of water to the same degree, because there was not as much money in the sport. You couldn't afford to do it.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, I think today's guys are very diligent and have a strong work ethic. But it's anecdotal. It's this guy yes, this guy no. But on the whole, I think they're probably a little more diligent about the practice.
I think Mark on the comments made the statement that 6 out of the 9 rookies made the Bassmaster Classic this past year.
Okay, is that a statement about the quality of the rookies or about the lack of quality among the rest of the field?
Well, I mean, it is what you're dealing with from a field standpoint. I mean, you still got to go out. You still got to catch them. It doesn't matter who's in the field there. You still have to perform no matter what. I understand the point you make, but the other thing is, too, is the methodology of what those rookies are doing in comparison to what the field intensity or the field level of competition was in prior years is definitely different. Now, having said that, I'm still going to go back and say it's still you against the fish. It's still you control what you can control, and it's still up to you to go out and go out and catch 20 pounds a day or whatever.
It is against the fish, sure.
Yeah, but I tend to I see exactly what you're saying.
Well, I would add, and there are other factors too. I'm not. First of all, to that gentleman's point that 6 of the 9 made it, that tells me that's it. That's an interesting point, but that doesn't tell me anything about the quality of the rookies or about the quality of the field. I would need to take a deeper dive. I will tell you that the catch rates on the Elite Series has been around 16 years now. The 2 lowest catch rate seasons in Elite Series history are 2020 and 2021. They caught fewer fish than at any other time in Elite history. There are other factors. There's the weather. There's the venues. There's the timing. There's all these other venues. But these are seasons that are multiple tournaments that are 8, 9 tournaments long. In some cases, 11 tournaments long in the early years of the Elites. And those are the 2 lowest catch rate years. I maintain that the field is not what it was.
All right. We're going to move on to another subject because I want your take on this. There's been a lot of discussion on social media and everything else from the fans, even some from the anglers, about who's in and who's out next year on the BPT, on the Elite Series, and every other trail. And with the Elite Series, it's like a 3-year average. It's this. You got drops. You got legend exemptions. You got all kinds of different factors thrown in there. What I want, Ken, is I want your opinion. What should happen? I don't care if it's the ABC Tour. It doesn't matter. In top-level competition from a fishing standpoint, do you give these anglers a 2-year average to finish in the top? I'm going to use the number 80, all right, out of 100. Or do you say, you know what? If you can't finish in the top 80, I don't care how many years you've been out here, be it 2 or be it 20, if you can't finish in the top 80 with 8 events at the highest level of fishing, you just lost your card. Sorry, come back, try to earn your card again. But the bottom line is you got to catch them. Should they use a 2-year average, a 3-year average, or should it be like other individual sports? Hey, you got to catch them that year. And quite honestly, if you don't finish in the top 80, you shouldn't be out here. What are your thoughts?
I'd like to see him go to a 3-year average, and for a variety of reasons. Obviously, 3 years of stats is more indicative of performance than 2 years of stats. 1 year is, if you had 1 year, here's what you'd see. Guys would fish 3 events. If they were doing really bad, they'd come up with a medical exemption. 50% of or 30 guys every year would do that because it's not hard to get a medical exemption. I think bass has been remarkably, and I'm going to choose my words carefully here because I don't want to upset a lot of anglers.
Yeah.
But I think bass has been remarkably generous over the years with who gets to stay in the Elite Series. Okay. Yeah. I think that all the leagues have their issues and problems, but in this regard, bass has been remarkably kind and generous to anglers in not cutting them from the series. The only time I thought they did not do a good job was the very first year, 2006. But since then, I think bass has been very good to these guys and giving them an opportunity to perform and to establish themselves. I think a year is not enough. You can be a rookie and that year can fly by, and you can be worried about money, and you can be trying to learn the new waters, and you can be a pretty dang good angler and still have a really bad year. Mm-hmm. Once you've had one bad year, it's hard to level the ship and get things moving and show good statistical performance by turning it around and having a decent year to follow it. You need 3 years really to show that. But I don't think bass owes them anything, or I don't think bass needs to go anything beyond 3 years. Yeah. I don't think bass or MLF or NPFL or anybody else owes these guys a living. You got to get out there and earn it. Yeah. If you're not one of the best, then get off the field. We got somebody who wants to take your place, and they're ready. So if you're not cutting it, you got to get out of the way.
Yeah.
And I think for a long time I was disappointed that bass was so generous with the anglers because I wanted to see that Elite Series improve in its stature and in the quality of players out there.
All right, I'm going to say this, Ken. I don't think this will ever happen, but I've discussed this numerous times on this show. I think there needs to be a way for bass to generate more revenue, or whoever it is. I'm just going to say the ABC Professional Fishing Corporation or whatever it is. It doesn't matter who's doing it or what it is. 2 things need to happen. One, I believe it should be 1 year. And here's why. Whew. All right, here's why.
You're a stern taskmaster, Mark.
No, here's why.
Before I come on the show, you always say, Ken Duke, if you don't cut it today, you will be cut.
No, listen to this thought process. Okay, and people are going to go, Jeffries, you're out of your mind, blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. The reason I say 1 year is because you have to change. You have to change a few things. And I firmly believe, no matter who it is, if you don't finish in the top 80, you need to earn your way back up there after 1 year. Over 8 tournaments, 8. That's not 2 or 3.
Or 9.
It's
or
8
9.
tournaments. Now, a couple things have to change. One, you have to
Make a
dangle
note.
the carrot out there. So what you do to keep people from dropping out is if you win an event, you automatically get your card for the next year.
Okay.
So even if you're in 90th place going into the last event, if you win that event, you earn your card back. All right?
Okay.
How many checks do you think that somebody has earned if they don't win an event and finish below 80th place? Not very many.
1 or 2.
Not very many. So financially, you're probably in a world of hurt. I don't care what kind of sponsors you got on your jersey, because you still got to pay the mortgage, the insurance payment, still got to pay car payments, truck payments, boat payments, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So we're probably doing you a favor financially to say, hey, man, if you want to continue doing this, we'll let you back in, but you got to earn your way back in. All right, Mark, so how do the guys earn their way back in? Well, what you do is you have the Pro Tour qualifier events, to where if you want to, you can actually fish the qualifier on a different body of water. And I'm going to use the example. Let's say the Elite Series event is on Toledo Bend. You have the PTQ at Sam Rayburn. All right? It's a 2-day event. The top 5 guys, you pay $2,500. The top 5 guys make it in. All right? Then you pony up the balance for your entry fee. All right? If you finish, let's say if they had I'm just going to use simple math. Let's say if you had 100 anglers fish the PTQ, and there's a bunch of restrictions. I know, folks, off limits and all that. You got to put all these limitations on. I get that. I'm being simple here. Okay? You have the PTQ at Sam Rayburn. 5 guys get in. Let's see, the field size is 100. So what you do, 5 guys get in, but you pay down 1 for 4, which would be 25th place. You get your money back. So you roll the dice, but if you finish in the top 25, you know that you're at least going to get your money back. All right? Yeah, you had a few expenses, but blah, blah, blah. Now, for all those 20 guys that finish below 80th place, every single event during that following year, you got a chance to get in there. Then if you want to re-qualify, you fish the Opens too. This is a professional platform now. If you want to be dedicated and not be, with all due respect, a part-time professional, if you truly want to be dedicated 100% and be a professional athlete on whatever, the XYZ Fishing Corporation or whatever it is, now you have, 1, you got an additional revenue stream that Bass is going to have by having the PTQs. 2, you're actually giving the guys a mulligan in a sense of, all right, you didn't finish in the top 80. Well, you know what? You got an opportunity to fish the PTQs next year. All right. And then thirdly is you still have an opportunity for people to dip their toe in the pool if they want to and see if they have enough game to actually qualify based upon what the restrictions are and off limits and all that. Restriction as far as being eligible to participate in the PTQ. Look, I know I'm going to get a lot of wrongful comments. Well, you're letting Rick Clunn, not be on because he's in the bottom. You know what, man? As much as I love Rick Clunn, in this day and age, it's all about performance. And if you can't fish and finish in the top 80, have you truly earned a spot to keep your tour card for the following year? All right. Is it the end all? Heck no. I could be 100% wrong, but it is a platform of, you know what? If you want to be in this game and you want to be a touring professional, this is what you got to do. Now, the little asterisk, Ken, the final asterisk is, and I've said this for many, many years, I don't care if it's only 4 events or 6 events, there needs to be a senior tour. Absolutely 100%. There needs to be a Legends Tour, to where if you do have some of those people like a Rick Clunn, like a David Fritz, that are over 50 years old, Now you give them another option. If they don't want to do the PTQs, they can do the senior tour. Thoughts?
I have 4.
Okay.
Number 1, you were talking about staying in the top 80. If the field of elites is going to be around 100, which I think they want to be around that 100 to 110 range, that's way too many guys to cut in a season. Because you cannot introduce, in my opinion, you cannot introduce 30 new guys a year. You cannot build their brands. You don't have enough media opportunities to establish them. So I think that's way too many. I think cutting 10 or 12 a year is about right. And I would like to see the field at no more than 100. I think maybe 80 is a good number, but no more than 100.
Okay.
Number 2, I think the sport needs exemptions. You were talking about the sport is all about performance. I think that would be true if. That would be true. I think sports, the big boy sports, sorry guys, much as I love fishing, I'm not going to call it a big boy sport right now.
Yeah.
The big boy sports, NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, they're all about performance because they have incredibly large and powerful fan bases. We do not. We do not have an incredibly large and powerful fan base at all. Our fan base is minuscule. It's tiny.
Compared, that's the swimming pool in the ocean, correct?
Yeah, it's your swimming pool in the ocean analogy, and it's perfect here. So no, it cannot be all about performance. It has to be all about the fans, okay? The fans. And the fans, and I'm one of them, never want to see Rick Clunn cut. If you cut Rick Clunn, you're making a catastrophic mistake. I remember in 2006, I was working for Bass, and Jimmy Houston finished dead last in the Elite Series, and they cut him. They cut the most popular angler on the tour. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack when I learned this information. Mm-hmm. I thought it was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen in my life. They did it. It was wrong. It was anti-fan. Anybody who does something that's anti-fan in something that's not, even if you're in a big boy sport, that's stupid. But if you're not in a big boy sport, somebody should take you out and beat you. Okay. That's number 2. Well, it's really 2 and 3. So I'll move on to number 4.
Okay. Yeah.
Your senior tour thing.
Yeah.
There's barely enough money to support a regular tour. Where are you going to get the money to support the senior tour?
That's another revenue stream, Ken.
It's not another revenue stream. There's no revenue there. Nobody will support it.
Nobody cares about Rick Clunn? You just
Everybody
said that
cares about Rick Clunn.
Well, what if Rick Clunn and Jimmy Houston and whoever else over 50 fish in a tournament? You don't think that would be appealing and a revenue-generating item?
Over 50. Steve Kennedy's over 50. Kevin Van Dam's over 50.
I'm
those guys to fish in the senior tour?
Yeah.
I think those guys want to still fish in the regular tours because there's going to be more money in the regular
and they
tour.
still can. They still can.
No,
in golf,
the senior tour has no chance. You can't let them play both. Otherwise your senior tour will die.
Okay.
You've got to say to a 50-year-old dude, hey, welcome to the senior tour. You want to go fish with the other guys? No, I'm sorry. Welcome to the senior tour.
No. Well, that's not why I brought it up, but I get your point.
There's barely enough money now to keep the other tours alive. Not prosper. I'm not saying they're prospering. There's barely enough to keep them alive. And your pro tour qualifiers, your PTQs, they're not another revenue source for Bass. They're a cost. Bass is not going to be able to make money, significant money off of those events, in my opinion, nor would Major League Fishing or anybody else. That's not going to be a revenue source. That's going to be a cost center.
Okay, hang on. Let's do simple math. If I'm only paying back 25 out of 100, what's 75 times $2,500?
That's not a lot of money.
Yeah, but dude, you know what, Ken? That's more than what the communities are paying.
I know, but that's not a lot of money when Bass ships the number of people out there to run the event, and they've got vehicles, and they've got a stage, and they've got this, they've got hotels, they've got to eat.
The PTQs don't have to be blowout coverage like what they're doing for an Elite Series event. The PGA qualifiers don't do that. Yeah, they might be streamed on the Golf Channel or something.
The PGA is several light years ahead of any bass fishing organization.
I agree 100%, man. I agree. Hey, I'm trying to be creative here. You've got all these boxes that you need to check off to create the perfect situation, of which will never exist. But I don't know, man. I just have always been, maybe it goes back to my junior high days when I got cut. You know, when I got cut, I needed to go in junior high basketball. I got cut. You know, everybody rushed up to the list that was on the locker room door, who made the team and who didn't. And I remember I was in 7th grade and I looked up and I didn't make it. So what did I do? I busted my tail to make sure next year when we had tryouts that I was going to make that team, by gosh. Now, I know there's a big difference between junior high basketball and a guy who's risking everything financially and putting it on the line to be on whatever tour. It doesn't matter what it is. But what I'm saying is this dynamic shift has taken place to where everybody thinks they should get a mulligan. Well, guess what? In my world, you get maybe one chance, but you got 8 of them to prove yourself. And if you're not performing well, I'm still giving you a mulligan to say, hey, man, if you win, you get your tour card again.
Okay, let me ask you this way. You've got a chance to you're a manufacturer, and you've got a chance to sponsor a young guy who's qualified. He's just edged his way into the big time, to the one of the top levels. But he has no guarantee that he's going to survive more than a year. Are you going to sponsor that guy? I'm not. I'm probably not going to sponsor him because I'm very doubtful that he's going to be able to survive his year. I'm very doubtful that the league is going to be able to give him the kind of attention and exposure that's going to significantly benefit me. And I'm expecting there's a significant chance he's going to get cut. So I want no part of him. But if I know he's being guaranteed 3 years, now I'm much more interested in playing.
I have the solution. All right. Could be wrong, but let me get your thoughts on this. You know what you do with that young kid, that rookie? You lace up his contract, and it is totally loaded with incentives. Look, dude, you go out and perform. Here's how we're going to do your contract. Because performance sells. Marketability off the water, yeah, we believe you're going to be able to do that too. But you load up his contract, you give the kid a chance and say, look, if you finish in the top 50, all right, we're going to give you an additional $2,500. If you make a final day, we're going to give you an additional $5,000 or whatever. It is totally incentive based upon his performance. And you know what? If he does that, he's probably going to be in the top 80.
Yeah, and that works from a sponsor standpoint, as long as you can find enough rookies who are not not very bright and would take such a deal.
All right, let me ask you this, Ken. The rookie class, like the final event, and correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody out there knows, I think the final open event for guys that are going to qualify for the Bassmaster Elite Series is in either October or November. It's late in the year. So basically for the rookies, what you have to do, you have to position yourself to potential sponsors in a manner of, well, I'm in position, but there still is no guarantee that I'm going to make the Elite Series. But I might, and I think I'm going to. Let's say he or she goes ahead and performs well and makes the Elite Series. Now it's the month of November. All right, it's the month of November. How many deals are you going to get? Are you going to get cut? Pardon the pun. That you're going to get cut. That is going to financially support your efforts for that following year. Now, let me ask you a second question. Really, Ken, be honest with the fans and be honest with me on this one. How many? Let's say there's 10 rookies on the Elite Series next year. Truly. How many of those rookies are getting a good portion of their entry fees paid? What are your thoughts?
You mean the manufacturers that sponsor them are writing a check to Bass, directly to Bass to pay their entry fees?
Yeah, let's just use the $55,000 in entry fees or whatever it is. How many rookies next year are going to have that $55,000 note, whatever you want to call it, entry fees, paid by the sponsors that they get within a 2-month period, of which most of the companies already have their budgets established?
Less than half, but maybe 4 out of 10. And with regard to your comment right before, let's go over that one again.
Okay.
The one you made right before this one. You were talking about the rookies again. Tell me that one again. I wanted to respond to that.
Dude, I was all over the place on that one.
I wanted to respond. I can't remember exactly what your comment was, and so I can't remember what I wanted to say. But
well, it was the fact that they're not going to qualify until maybe November, December.
Perfect. Now, you said that a lot of these guys are going to be kind of left in the lurch because of the timing of everything. But that goes right back to your performance comment about performance gets paid. Well, you know what? The guys who do the best, whether it's at the elite level or the qualifying level, get the best deals. And if you're one of these guys who's qualifying only right at the end and you haven't been dominating your season all along, you haven't been showing everybody that you're just the best stick on the water, then you're going to sign one of those later deals. And that's just all about performance again. I realize a lot has to do with the schedule, because especially when you're qualifying through a circuit like the Bassmaster Opens, where one bad day can kill you, that's tough. That's a tough situation in the marketplace. But if you've had good tournaments along through the season, and all the seasons are not August through September or something like that, then you can show yourself off early.
I am fascinated by how deals get cut at the end of the year with what these guys are doing. And I would say, based upon me being around this game for a while, and you can either agree or disagree, a lot of these rookies, they get what I classify the buddy deal. They got a friend who owns a business or has a connection that helps them out those first couple of years, and then if they perform, then you start to see the jersey load up with logos. Agree or disagree?
I absolutely agree. And I expect a lot of fans know this. The sponsors are totally in the driver's seat. And every year it seems like it gets tougher and tougher on the angler, because these, and especially in times of economic uncertainty like we have with the pandemic, companies are making their decisions later and later and later. Yeah. And oftentimes they're leaving these wannabe pro anglers and these pro anglers in a really tough spot. They don't know whether or not they're going to have a deal, and it's time to order their jersey. They don't know whether they have a deal, and it's time or past time to wrap their boat. Being a bass pro is not an easy life. It's a really tough lifestyle, especially if you're not one of the well-established guys.
Yeah. You know, we've went almost 2.5 hours, Ken.
That's because Mark Jeffries is fascinating, and Ken Duke will debate and talk and converse with him all day long.
No, that's good stuff, man. And I'm wrong a lot, but I don't know. Maybe it's because of the era that I was brought up in. You know, if you perform,
I think you're one of the most creative minds in our industry, and you've always got a lot of interesting and different ideas. Yeah. I disagree with some of them, but
which is fine.
Yeah, exactly. You and I have been friends a long time, and we've been thinking about this stuff and talking about this stuff and debating this stuff for a long, long time. You know, the reason you and I stay friends is because we don't take any of it personally. You've called me crazy, I've called you crazy, but we look forward to the next conversation.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All right, one final question, and then we're going to close things out. I'm curious, do you know if companies in the industry, endemic companies, do they set aside budget revenue or budget dollars for guys that are going to qualify in the Elite Series or the BPT? In other words, they have a portion of their budget knowing that they don't know who's going to qualify, but they definitely want to have representation with some of the rookies on whatever tour it is.
I would say that it's maybe not formal in that way. I think what happens is each of these companies out here that chooses to sponsor pro anglers has a marketing budget. and they have a staff for promotional anglers like Bass Pros, and that budget is fixed. Usually, it's fixed, and it's a hard number, and they usually find out what that number is along about October.
Yeah,
that's a very common thing for me to hear, is that, well, we'll set our budget in October, and then we'll make our decision in November and December, and every year it seems like that gets pushed back. And then it depends upon the guy who oversees that marketing budget as to whether or not money is held back for guys who might qualify. What you find quite often is, especially at the companies that manufacture products that are not exclusive to the bass market, is sometimes these marketing managers are not that aware of who might qualify or who might do this or do that.
Really?
They don't have their finger on that pulse because it's not a big enough part of their sales. It's not a big enough part of their marketing effort. They don't need to know.
Yeah.
Would they benefit by knowing? Almost certainly, but they don't necessarily really need to know.
Yeah, this is a great comment from Brian. Mark always has the ideas while Ken tells him why it won't work. That's why we get along so well, Ken. You keep me in line, man.
I'm trying, Mark. I'm trying, Brian. I'm trying. I'm doing my best.
He's dead on, man. Yeah, I come up with ideas, but they all get poo-pooed by Ken Duke. That's what happens.
No.
All right, man. It's been a great 2.5 hours. Ken's going to be making an appearance once again when Matt is gone. And we're going to have you on during the marathon show that we're going to do on August 9th and 10th. Not sure what the time slot is, but we will definitely have Ken Duke be a part of the marathon.
I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be very cool.
Yeah. Good stuff. Great stuff. All right, tomorrow, I'm still working on the show tomorrow. I had some stuff, and I had an individual cancel on me tomorrow, so I had to go TBA. I'm sure people would like to hear again from Ken Duke tomorrow, but I think you have stuff lined up, right, Ken?
What have I got tomorrow, man? Let's see. What have I got tomorrow? You're having me look at my schedule on the fly.
That's okay.
Well, I'm good in the morning, actually, but you let me know what you want to do. We'll do it.
All right. I right now, because I had a cancellation, if you're okay with it, let's have you on. We'll continue this discussion, man.
I'd love to. That'd be a lot of fun.
All right, we'll do that, and I'll try and I'm working on another guest that we can have a guest on too.
Cool. We can take a deeper dive into ICAST if you want to. I think there's still some interesting ground to cover about that.
Yeah.
I'd love it. I always enjoy my time with Mark Jeffries and especially talking Bass Talk Live.
Yeah.
If for anybody who doesn't know us both, this is just the only different thing about this conversation is there's a camera on us.
No, that's a good point.
This is just our regular if you'd have had a camera on us in Fort Worth when we were eating barbecue,
you
could have turned it into a long Bass Talk Live.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All right, so Ken's going to join us tomorrow, still working on a guest. And then Wednesday, a very cool show, our first BTL fan guest host. He's going to be sitting right there in Matt's chair. Bo Stevens from, where's he from? Either Knoxville or Nashville. He's from Tennessee. Can't remember. His parents live here in Oklahoma City. He's taking care of the parents on a visit, and then he's going to be in studio as we welcome our guest that day. Edwin Evers is going to be on Wednesday, so we'll pick Edwin's brain and find out what being a BTL fan is all about from our guest host, Ken.
Wow, Bo Stevens, you are in for a treat. Not only do you get guest host BTL, but Edwin Evers, my gosh. It just does not get any better than that. Mark Jeffries and Edwin Evers are two of my favorite people, not just in the industry, but on the planet. Yeah. And you're going to have a good time. And Bo, I don't know you, but bring your A game, brother. You're going to need it with you.
No, don't stress him out, Ken. We're just going to have a good time, man.
Hey, Bo, be bold. Be bold, Bo. Take those first two letters of your name and be bold.
There you go. Good stuff. All right. Another great week. And then obviously on Thursday, day 4, number 30 with the man, Frank Scalish, as we continue to do the locker room stuff in the evening. We actually have 2 sessions scheduled for this evening. So we will let you guys know when some spots open up on that. But we are booked for quite some time. That's been enormously successful and great feedback on the fans on that. So we'll welcome Ken again tomorrow and do the same thing. I don't know if we can go 2.5 hours tomorrow, Ken.
Might be best for both of us if we don't, but I'm ready.
We might.
I'll be ready.
We might. All right, I want to thank the fans. Great comments and questions from the fans. That's what we're about. And you guys are doing a great job giving me feedback, giving Ken feedback. So much appreciation for the fans' engagement in this show with Ken. Everybody out there, be safe. That's it. We're out of here.